Henry Ford
built himself a horseless carriage.
It's a little 2-cylinder, 4 or 5 horsepower engine.
They kept improving the production methods. They kept changing the parts on the car. Ford Motor Company set out on a relentless drive.
The Model T was the game changer of the car world.
Henry Ford didn't just build cars. He rebuilt the world's idea of work, time, and money. At a moment when automobiles were luxury toys for the rich, Ford made a radical promise. The average factory worker should be able to afford the very product he builds. That single idea would shake capitalism, anger powerful industrialists, and quietly have a hand in creating the modern middle class. This is the story of a farm boy who hated traditional schooling, failed multiple businesses, was mocked by competitors, and still went on to change how nearly every product on Earth is made. It's a story of obsession, stubborn genius, moral contradictions, and a vision so bold that it still shapes your daily life more than a century later. In this video, you'll discover how Henry Ford rose from rural obscurity to global influence, how the assembly line transformed society, and why his legacy is far more complicated than the Model T. Stay until the end, because understanding Henry Ford isn't just about understanding one man. It's about understanding the world you live in today. Henry Ford was born in 1863 on a quiet farm near Dearborn, Michigan. He was one of 8 children, expected to inherit the rhythms of farm life, but from an early age, Henry felt restless. The soil never fascinated him the way machines did. While others saw tools as necessities, he saw mysteries waiting to be solved. At 13, his father gave him a pocket watch. Instead of treasuring it, Henry dismantled it completely, then put it back together. That moment revealed something extraordinary. He didn't just want to use machines, he wanted to understand their souls. Word spread, and soon, neighbors were bringing him broken watches, trusting the boy who seemed to speak the language of gears. At age 16, Henry made a decision that would define his life. He walked away from the farm and into the city of Detroit, determined to work with machines. It was a bold move, risky and uncertain, but it marked the beginning of a journey that would pull America itself out of the fields and into the factories. Detroit introduced Ford to machine shops, steam engines, and the growing pulse of industrial America. He learned fast, absorbing everything from metalwork to mechanics. But more importantly, he began imagining something radical, a vehicle that moved without horses, powered by fuel and human ingenuity. While working at the Detroit Edison Company, Ford spent his nights experimenting. His promotion to chief engineer gave him freedom, odd hours, steady income, and time to think. In a small workshop surrounded by scrap metal and hope, he built his first gasoline engine, then a crude vehicle known as the quadricycle. When Henry showed his ideas to Thomas Edison, he expected skepticism. Instead, Edison encouraged him to keep going. That validation mattered. It wasn't just approval, it was permission to dream bigger. Ford sold each early invention to fund the next, constantly improving, never satisfied, driven by the belief that something revolutionary was within reach. The road to success was anything but smooth. Ford launched multiple companies, each collapsing under pressure from investors who wanted quick profits. They wanted a finished product. Ford wanted perfection. Again and again, backers walked away, frustrated by his refusal to compromise. To prove his engineering skill, Ford turned to racing. He built powerful machines and shattered speed records, earning national attention. These victories weren't about glory. They were about credibility. Each win told the world that Henry Ford understood engines better than almost anyone alive. Still, it took years before he was ready. When the Ford Motor Company finally formed in 1903, it wasn't backed by elites, but by ordinary people willing to bet on his vision. Ford wasn't trying to build luxury. He was preparing to build something for everyone. In 1908, Henry Ford introduced the Model T, and with it, a bold declaration. The automobile would no longer belong only to the wealthy. It would belong to the farmer, the shopkeeper, the factory worker. Simple, sturdy, and affordable. The Model T was designed to survive rough roads and rough lives. The car didn't just sell, it exploded. Millions were produced, transforming how people lived and moved. Farms were no longer isolated. Cities expanded outward. Roads were built, suburbs were born, and the pace of life accelerated. America changed because people could finally go where they wanted, when they wanted. Ford didn't stop at the product. He reinvented production itself. By introducing the moving assembly line, he slashed manufacturing time and costs, making the Model T cheaper each year. Efficiency became a weapon, and Ford wielded it better than anyone. In 1914, Ford shocked the world again, this time by doubling factory wages and reducing working hours. The move made him famous overnight. Workers lined up by the thousands, and productivity soared. Ford argued that well-paid workers made better employees and better customers. But this generosity came with control. Ford closely monitored his workforce, judging not only how they worked, but how they lived. Loyalty was rewarded, independence was discouraged. His factories were places of opportunity, but also of rigid discipline. As his power grew, so did his flaws. Ford became stubborn, resistant to change, and deeply controversial. His public embrace of anti-Semitic ideas stained his legacy and contradicted the progress he otherwise represented. He was capable of visionary generosity and alarming prejudice, sometimes at the same time. As competitors evolved, Ford resisted. He clung to old designs while rivals offered comfort, color, and choice. By the time he adapted, his dominance had slipped. The Model A and V8 found success, but Ford was no longer untouchable. In his later years, Ford retreated into nostalgia, building museums and villages dedicated to preserving the rural America he felt had been lost. He remained influential, but increasingly isolated. Ford was a man whose greatest creation had reshaped the very world he longed to escape. Henry Ford died in 1947, but his impact never did. He didn't just change transportation, he changed labor, industry, and society itself. The modern world runs on ideas he forced into motion. To understand Henry Ford is to understand how one man's obsession reshaped the rhythm of everyday life.